Hello, we are Sandra Robertazzi and Jonathan Grech. We are going to deal with linguistic and cultural imperialism. To begin with, I would like to give you an introduction of some of the basic terms used in analysis of language and imperialism. Those terms are ideologically loaded. They present racism that is affirmed by means of self-exaltation on the part of the dominant group. That is to say, that is believed that the dominant group is the best one in comparison to the dominated ones. The devaluation of the dominated group, including their culture, set of ideas and beliefs, and systematic rationalization of the relationship between both groups that is always favorable to the dominant one. Here we have two of the most important terms by describing a dominated group. Tribe, on the one hand, is defined as a social division in a traditional society consisting of families or communities linked by social, economic, religious, or blood ties with a common culture and dialect. Dialect is defined as a particular form of language which is peculiar to a specific region or social group. These two terms are usually used by the dominant group in order to differentiate themselves from the dominated groups. They state that they are a nation with a language, two terms that present a high prestige, whereas they describe the dominated groups as tribes with dialects, okay? Two terms that have negative connotation. Nowadays, we replace the word dialect by variety. Okay, now I am going to introduce two terms that are vernacular language and lingua franca. Vernacular language is defined as a language which is the mother tongue of a group, which is socially or politically dominated by another group, speaking a different language. Here we have the example case of Hong Kong. That is a region located in China. It used to be a colony that was governed by the United Kingdom, the British Empire. The inhabitants of that region used the Chinese language in order to communicate among them, whereas they used English as a lingua franca in order to communicate with the dominant leaders. Nowadays, we still use lingua franca, and this is defined as a language that is used for communication from different groups of people that speak different languages. So we use a language with a high prestige. Nowadays, English is the most important one in order to, for communication, in order to communicate. Well, this English language is used in many fields. This term lingua franca is quite controversial because it places one language in a very powerful position in comparison to others.
I will talk about linguistic imperialism, dealing with Galton's imperialism theory that put forward 6 types of imperialism: economic, political, military, communicative, cultural, social. And he defines imperialism as a relationship whereby one society can dominate another. The relationship between these societies have 4 mechanisms. Exploitation is the most important because it implies interaction between parties in which exchange of goods is on unequal terms. The other are penetration, fragmentation, and marginalization. This theory operates with the division of the world in 2, the dominant center, the powerful countries, and the dominant peripheries, and the undeveloped countries. But there are a center of power linked by shared interests between them. It is language. That's the link the two of them have. Well, we talk about little about sexism. Sexism is defined as word action that arbitrarily assign roles, characteristics to people on the basis of sex. Originally used to practice that discriminate against women. Nowadays, it's changed because it is an attribute of either sex. But linguicism. Linguicism is defined, we can say that linguicism is the criteria in the belief and structure which result in unequal power and resource allocation. Linguicism will involve the representation of the dominant language for purposes of inclusion and the opposite for dominated language for purposes of exclusion. English linguistic imperialism is one subtype of linguicism. Well, linguicism refers to ideologies and structure where language is the means for effective and maintaining an equal allocation of power. But on the contrary, also contribute to linguistic imperialism purposes that actors are supported by an imperialist structure of exploitation of one society by another. Well, I will talk about now cultural imperialism in science, the media, and education. When we talk about cultural imperialism, we talk about as a process in which a society brought into the modern societies brought to the modern world, promote the values and structure for the dominant center. They use communicative products, all kind of films, TV series, advertising, video, pop music. When we talk about cultural synchronization, we talk about the central culture products serve as models for the periphery on many aspects. Their cultural and inventiveness are destroyed because they gradually adopted alien form, and then they replace them or accommodate these words to their own culture. And when we talk about personal transfer, we talk about training and education. And the educational aid agencies show the difficulty of both the diagnosis of the problem and the way it will be solved, and the selection of the remedy for them. The LTA consists of the transfer of the language, selected a preferred approach to the teaching and learning, and a certain training and skill for the teacher who will carry out the work.
Okay, and now we proceed with ELT. ELT is considered to be political. It's not possible to disconnect culture from structure. Education cannot be separated from society, politics, and economy. There is a belief that ELT is non-political. English language is exported as a standard product without taking into account the requirements of the local market. Okay, and ELT presents three major functions: economic reproductive, qualify people to build up nation; ideological, modern idea, channel for social and cultural values; and repressive, English as a medium of communication for other subjects. There is a hidden curriculum. There is social and economic norms and expectations. Okay, now we continue by explaining neo-colonialism. That is the use of economic, political, or other means of obtaining or retaining influence over former colonies. The present day form of imperialism takes. Western model reflected in the third world nation's educational system, language of education. The values and norms of dominant groups are transmitted by hegemonic processes. That is to say, dominant ideas that we take for granted. English colonies, hegemonic position in many former colonies, and we have the acceptance of explicit and implicit values, beliefs, activities, which contributes to the maintenance of the English-speaking countries' dominance over the colonies or the former colonies. Okay.